The Immortal John Hancock here, and today I'm talking about the Atari VCS 3.5 years later after release. I was an original backer. I reflect upon this kind of console PC hybrid every 6 months. I've done many videos on it. You can check them out below in my Atari playlist where I cover many things Atari, but I cover lots of different things, classic and modern. Anyways, back to the Atari VCS. You know what? I was original backer and got this around Christmas time. I was surprised when it came out and have been following it and playing it and purchasing games over the last 3.5 years. And there's lots to say about this. It hasn't been a stellar success. It's kind of sputtered along, ups and downs, and I'm here to talk about those things and really talk about the last 6 months. I'm going to focus this video on the last 6 months, what's been going on. I own about half the library. There's about 164 games offered on the digital marketplace of this modern console PC hybrid, and there's lots of opinions about this, whether you love it or hate it or haven't even know about it, because it's just kind of out there. And you know what, there's a lot of people that don't even understand what it is. And I'm here to kind of talk about what is on this device and my thoughts about it from both a consumer and an independent publisher. I have 4 of my games on the marketplace. A recent one came out. I'm going to talk about that. And you know what? It's been up and down, but the last 6 months has been okay. And a lot of people may not even know that this is still on the marketplace. That's how crowded the video game marketplace is. But you know, Atari is continuing to support this. The original team that made this is no longer around, I do believe, and Atari is just continuing to not drop the ball and offer games on this device, as well as a lot of indie releases. And we're going to jump right in. Last 6 months has had a steady release of about 25 games. And you know what? The challenge with Atari VCS is that many of the games are offered on other devices. And it doesn't have an identity. I've talked about this in recent videos that have talked about the VCS, its ups and downs. It's had some marketplace issues. There's a few games that kind of came out and then were taken off. You know what? And there's been some people having purchasing issues. The actual setup of the marketplace could be polished and upgraded. I know that Atari is looking at doing that. Anyways, let's jump into the games. There's several games that have come out that have gotten my attention and I've purchased. Cash Cow being probably the best release in the last 6 months. And this is from the developer of Donut Dodo. And fantastic arcade style game. My friend best described this, who also owns an Atari VCS, as Miner 2049er on acid. And you know what? It's just a great little arcade style game, really fast Twitch gaming, difficult like Donut Dodo, and a must buy. This is probably one of the better games coming out on the Atari VCS. The downside is that there's not as many games. The games that come out on the Atari VCS are offered elsewhere, so it doesn't have like a very specific identity. But I'm glad that Cash Cow is being offered on the VCS, and it is a must play. Next, Atari did a pair of games themselves. The better one, I think, is Lunarlander Beyond. And some people have issues with the art style. I do like that Atari has gotten away from the Recharge series and kind of branching out and doing its own IPs with like full featured games. And so Lunarlander Beyond is one of these games. I liked it. I liked it a lot better than I thought I was gonna. The reviews were kind of mixed on it. It's on Steam as well as other modern consoles. And you know what? I do like the VCS has its version. I'm showing the Steam gameplay here. But you know what? I think this is kind of the direction I'm hoping Atari goes with, and they offer more games like this. The other game that they offered in this time period was Quomp 2. And you know what? It's like Pong with meets adventure. I think it's okay. I don't know if it's my favorite game. It's a little slow. But for people that like those puzzle adventure games mixed with a little bit of Pong, it's a unique take on it. I liked it. but I don't know if I loved it. There's several other independent game releases that came out during this time period, and one of them was Circus Interstellar. This is a Steam release that came out years ago, now offered on the VCS. And you know what? For people that might have missed the Steam version, this is great. You know, I met the development team at Portland Retro Gaming Expo, saw their booth. It was pretty awesome. They had their games set up in like an arcade one-up, and you know what? It looked fantastic. 4-player mayhem. It's essentially like Berserk in space with clowns, and you know it's pretty violent. But for people looking for that type of game, it's here. It's pretty fun to play, definitely with co-op. Anyways, the other recommendations that I purchased and picked up is Asteroid Claw. Now, Atari VCS doesn't get enough recognition for paddle games. Paddle games are pretty cool, but there's not enough of them. And what's cool about Metkin Games is that they've really kind of supported paddle games and have made independent paddle games. And Asteroid Claw is a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I highly recommend it. It's kind of a take on Asteroids meets a paddle game, and it's just well done. It's a perfect example of, I think, the identity that Atari VCS needs. They need exclusive games. This is an exclusive game, and something that I think is a good fit. It's got a mix of some decent graphics. It's not too retro. It's a little bit of modern, but it definitely has that indie vibe. It's a thumbs up for me, and I highly recommend it. You also have shooters like Madness Beverage, and this is kind of a boomer shooter. It's got like I'm showing like a retro PC mode on it. This game's okay. Again, another violent game, but you know what? If you're looking for that type of like, you know, classic 90s shooter, you can do much worse than Madness Beverage. Accuracy, at least with a controller, is a little bit difficult, but you can tweak that in the settings. And you know what? Just another game that I think is well worth picking up, especially at that $10 price point. I think that's kind of the sweet spot for digital game releases on the VCS. Games that are $10 or fewer, sometimes they're on sale. And I do think it's awesome that Atari is doing a good job at having frequent releases from themselves or independent publishers such as myself. Now, that's just a small sampling of the games that came out this last 6 months. The other thing I need to mention is the Polygunner demo. That's really looking forward to this release. And it's well polished. It's a demo. You can download it and check it out free. And, you know, this is from Retro Ninja. Retro Ninja also released BPM Boy, which is a fantastic game, kind of in the same vein as like Marble Madness, but a lot more to it. Highly recommend that game. Another game you can check out on the VCS. But I'm really a big fan of Polygunner. I'm not the best player at it. Played the demo, really enjoy it. I think it's a good mix of what the VCS is capable of when you have a established developer and programmer who knows its architecture. Anyways, that's just one sliver of what the VCS can offer. Atari's offered a solid state drive, which I have added to my VCS. I didn't get the Atari branded one, but that does add a lot of additional hard drive space. It's really easy to do yourself. I did have a friend help install some RAM as well. I don't know if it makes a huge difference with just the VCS releases, but you know, if you're going to double your VCS console as a PC, which I did pick up one of their Linux USB sticks, you know what? Overall, Atari is trying to do something. They're probably sitting on a bunch of hardware. I think that makes it challenging. What do they do with the Atari VCS moving forward? It's still an eclectic group of things, and it still is challenged by having what is the identity of the Atari VCS. And so I think a lot of people that aren't like hardcore into it may be scratching their heads. What is this thing? Is it worth picking up? I think it's worth picking up on sale. 2 or 3 times a year it goes on sale, reduces down to less than $200 for the all-in-one bundle. Might be worth checking out. There's enough games on there I can recommend, especially if you're not if you don't have a Steam Deck, you don't have Steam or a Switch, this might be something to check out Otherwise, I would stick with your Steam Deck or a Nintendo Switch, because I think most of those games are covered on those consoles, especially Steam. Moving forward, Atari has the VCS has another aspect to it, and it's independent aftermarket Atari 7800 and 2600 releases. And there's a multitude of them. There was a trilogy, the Dragons trilogy, that came out, and you know what? I picked these up. Dragon's Catch is one of the games shown here. Pretty fun little puzzle game. The other one is Dragon's Havoc, which is a kind of a more of a classic shooter. And there was a trilogy of these games offered on the 7800, and there was a ton other 25 games total on the Atari VCS, and about 10 of them were Atari 7800 releases. And these are aftermarket games, including my game, Blam Sockum. The 7800 release was offered recently on the Atari VCS, and you know what? I think it's one of the best versions of the game. Now, Atari is working on offering additional features on the VCS, and it's unknown. Blam Sockum, the 7800 version, has a whole additional soundtrack using Yamaha sound. Unfortunately, that's not available yet on the Atari VCS. Fingers crossed that they can figure that out, as it does add an additional aspect to this amazing puzzle game. And done by Daryl G., my good friend, and you know what? He is the programmer of Popeye for the Atari 7800. And Blam Sockum, he did an amazing job programming this, based on the Adam Welch Second Dimension version of Blam Sockum, but Daryl offered his own spin on the game with additional things such as throwing up at the top of the screen after a level's cleared. There's bonus scores. There's a lot of little extras on this release. Highly recommend it, and it's done pretty good. I've been very happy with the success of this game on the Atari VCS. You may want to check it out, and it gets a thumbs up for me. Next up, let's talk about one of my favorite Atari 7800 programmers, and that's Robert De Crescenzo, and he has a multitude of his games now being offered on the Atari 7800 on the Atari VCS, and that is Frenzy is one of them. Crystal Quest, Space Duel. There's several other games that Pac-Man Plus, username on Atari Age, has done. Highly recommend Frenzy because it has built-in Berserk 2-player action. This is one of my favorite games conversions that he has done, and it's great that Atari has given a thumbs up and approval of it. It's so awesome that essentially independent programmer made a aftermarket port, and then Atari gives the thumbs up for it and offers that game for them on the VCS. How awesome is that? I wish more bigger companies would support independent releases such as this, especially since Atari wasn't going to make a 7800 version, and he just said, all right, you can sell your version of the game on the marketplace. Awesome. Finally, I've talked about this before in previous videos, and I do think Atari not only offers its games, offers independent games, you can also have a PC mode on the VCS, but there's also services such as Stream Arcade. Now, it's one of the many things. I've talked about this in previous videos. I do think I like the free version offered on the Atari VCS. This is just adding a dimension of games that you can play through your VCS, especially if you don't have a multitude of other consoles. You also can do Xbox Cloud Gaming. Yes, you can sign in to your Xbox account and play through your Atari VCS and that's another aspect that I think is pretty cool. Now, let's talk about overall, what do I think of the Atari VCS? I still think it's a mixed bag. I still think that it has challenges as identifying itself. What is it? What is it? It's kind of an eclectic combination of both independent releases, aftermarket, classic 26 and 7800 games, a little bit of modern that Atari is offering, as well as something else. 164 games as this video is being released, and overall, it gets a C for me. I think it gets a C. It's not terrible. It's not great. It has to do more, and I think it has to do a better job at advertising. What is it? And has the ship sailed for the Atari VCS? What is left? What else is going to be coming out? Are they planning to have big plans for it? I have no idea. I personally think that they made a lot of hardware consoles and they've sat on them and they're just offering them as best as they can. A thumbs up to Atari though for continuing to support this. 3.5 years is a lot longer than I anticipated them offering this console, and I'm looking forward to seeing what else is on it. In the comments below, let me know. And thank you so much for watching this video. If you like what you see, consider hitting that like and subscribe button and clicking the bell as I'm uploading videos every week. You folks are wonderful and beautiful. This is the Immortal John Hancock, and you take care.